Good evening, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. I think it's been 2 years since I was here. Tonight, the topic is how to cultivate the Ariyan Eightfold path. It's a very important topic. In the Samyutta Nikaya Sutta 56.31, one day the Buddha was with his disciples in the forest in a Singsapa grove. So he collected a handful of Singsapa leaves in his hand, and he asked the monks, he said, look at the leaves in my hand. How is it compared to the leaves in the forest? Is it a lot? And they said, Bhagawa, the leaves in your hand are so little compared to the leaves in the Singsapa grove. So it's not even a fraction of the leaves in the grove. So the Buddha said, what I know is like the leaves in the Singsapa grove, so much. What I teach is so little like the leaves in my hand. So the Buddha said, I only teach suffering, the cause of suffering, the ending of suffering, and the path leading to the ending of suffering. So you see from here, all that the Buddha was trying to teach us is basically the Four Noble Truths, the Four Ariyan Truths. These Four Ariyan Truths. In some other sutta, the Buddha said, all the wholesome dhammas that he teaches are encompassed in these Four Ariyan Truths. For example, dependent origination, 5 aggregates of attachment, 6 sense bases, etc., are all trying to explain the Four Ariyan Truths in various ways to make us understand better. So these Four Ariyan Truths is the most important Dhamma. Unfortunately, later books say that this is elementary Dhamma, small vehicle Dhamma. Whereas you find in the suttas, the Buddha said, all Buddhas enlightened by understanding the Four Ariyan Truths. All Aryans become Aryans because they understand the Four Ariyan Truths. That's the danger of later teachings. Unless you know the original teachings of the Buddha, you will be fooled by these later teachings, which either contradict the Dhamma that the Buddha taught, or they say a lot of things that the Buddha did not say. Now, so the path to end suffering is the Ariyan Eightfold path, as explained in the suttas, and especially in Samyutta Nikaya Sutta, chapter 45, Magga Samyutta, which is a chapter devoted to explaining the Ariyan Eightfold path. And the Ariyan Eightfold path consists of 8 factors. Starts with right view, right thoughts, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And in the Magga Samyutta, it is said that the holy life is the Ariyan Eightfold path. So the purpose or the practice of the holy life is also the practice of the Ariyan Eightfold path. It is, in other words, it is the spiritual path. And it is said in Sutta 45.39, the fruits of the holy life are the fruit of stream entry, the fruit of one's returning, the fruit of non-returning, and the arahanthood. So if you practice the holy life, the Ariyan Eightfold path, you can get the fruit of stream entry, which is Sotapanna. Once returning is Sakadagamin, non-returning is Anagamin, and Arahanthood. Now, it is also said in Digha Nikaya number 16, Mahaparinibbana Sutta, the Buddha said, where the Ariyan Eightfold Path is found, there you will find the four Aryans. Holy men are only found where the Ariyan Eightfold Path is practiced. And the Buddha also said, where the Ariyan Eightfold Path is not practiced, you cannot find any Arya, any holy men. So, how do we practice the Ariyan Eightfold Path is explained quite clearly in the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 117, Mahachattarisaka Sutta. There the Buddha said, right view comes first. And how does right view come first? In one of right view, right thoughts comes into being. In one of right thoughts, right speech comes into being. In one of right speech, right action comes into being. In one of right action, right livelihood comes into being. In one of right livelihood, right effort comes into being. In one of right effort, right mindfulness comes into being. In one of right mindfulness, right concentration comes into being. So you see, one factor leads to another factor, and it must be practiced in this order. You cannot start with any factor you like. So that's why you find without right view, the first factor, you cannot find any Aryan. There are some people, like for example, before the Buddha was enlightened, in India, there were a lot of yogis striving very hard. And their practice was either ascetic practices, where they inflicted suffering upon themselves by practicing all kinds of austerities, starving themselves, going naked, eating only particular types of food, eating very little food, or they meditated. Even they meditated until they attained psychic powers, yet you could not find an Arya because there was nobody with right view. So that's why the Buddha said, all I teach is the four Aryan truths. Also, now the right view is defined as understanding the four Aryan truths. So you can see, since right view is defined as understanding the four Aryan truths, what the Buddha is trying to teach us is to get right view. Yeah? Because the Buddha says, all I teach is the four Aryan truths. And if you understand the four Aryan truths, you get right view. In one of the suttas, the Buddha said he constantly has two thoughts. One is the thought of seclusion. A holy man always likes to be alone, to go into his mind, because the world of the six senses is the world of suffering. When he goes into his mind, he's out of the world. So the Buddha always like to be alone. That's why he frequently thinks about seclusion. The other thought, the Buddha said, is he worries about beings. Why does he worry about beings? Because he's worried that we will fall into the woeful planes, into the ghost realm, the animal realm, and the hell realm. It's because the Buddha is so compassionate that he worries for us. So he spends all his life, after he attained enlightenment, he spent all his effort to teach the Dhamma so that we can get right view. Once you attain right view, it also means that you have seen the Dhamma. You have attained the Dhamma Chakku. Sometimes they say the eye of the Dhamma. The vision of the Dhamma is maybe a better translation. And once you get the right view or vision of the Dhamma, you have attained stream entry. In Sutta Samyutta Nikaya 55.5, it is said that the stream refers to the Ariyan Eightfold path. So stream entry is entering the Ariyan Eightfold path. Also, it is said in more than one sutta that all Aryans have right view. For example, in the Velama Sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 9.20, the Buddha said long time ago he was a Brahmin and he did so much dana to so many people. He said amounted to 84,000 buckets of gold, 84,000 buckets of silver, 84,000 buckets of precious stones, 84,000 pairs of cattle, 84,000 pairs of pigs, 84,000 pairs of sheep, goats, chickens, ducks, etc. And the food and the drinks he gave flowed like the river. But in spite of so much dana that he did, the Buddha said in that lifetime the merit was very little. Why? Because there was not a single person with right view to receive the offering. So if you make dana to putujana, to ordinary worldlings, the merit is very little. If you make dana to Arya, the offering is very meritorious. Also in the Samyutta Nikaya chapter 13, the Buddha said once a person has attained right view, the suffering that is left for him is very little compared to the suffering of an ordinary worldling. And the Buddha gave us several similes. One of them is like he took a bit of soil on his fingertip and he said, look at the soil on my fingertip, how much is it compared to the soil in the whole earth? And the disciple said, it's so little, cannot even compare. It's not even a fraction of the soil in the whole earth. The Buddha said similarly, the suffering left for a putujana, an ordinary worldling, is so much like the earth, like the soil in the earth. Whereas for a person with right view, who has attained stream entry, the suffering is so little left. Because at the maximum he will have only 7 more lifetimes. Whereas for an ordinary worldling, the samsara is endless, never ending. In the long round of samsara, that ordinary worldling will go to hell countless times, will go to animal realm countless times, and be reborn as a ghost countless times. And the suffering is hard to imagine. Now in the Samyutta Nikaya 25.1, the Buddha talked about 2 types of persons who have attained stream entry. One is called the Saddhanusarin, another one is Dhammanusarin. Saddhanusarin is a faith follower. And the Buddha said, Saddhanusarin places faith in the Dhamma and resolves on them. The Dhammanusarin, these teachings are accepted after being pondered. So basically, these 2 types of persons who have attained stream entry, also called the first path, they listen to the Dhamma and they understand and they get right view. And one of them has faith more, that's why it's called a faith follower. The other one has understanding more, this is called a Dhamma follower. And once you have attained stream entry, it is said in this Sutta 25.1 that the path will turn to fruit in the same lifetime. And this contradicts the Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma says once you attain path, immediately it turns to fruit the next conscious moment. If that is the case, you have no opportunity to make offerings to a path attainer. Yeah? Because once he attains a path, before he can make offerings, he already become a fruit attainer. But in the suttas, it is very clear that you can make offerings to a path attainer, to a fruit attainer. This is the Dakkhina Vibhanga Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 142, I think. In in the Majjhima Nikaya 43, it is said that there are two conditions for attaining right view. One is the voice of another, sometimes translated as the utterance of another, basically meaning the voice of another person teaching you the Dhamma. And then the second condition is focused attention. When you listen, you must have focused attention. Why focused attention? This is explained in Samyutta Nikaya 46.38. It is said, when one listens to the Dhamma with eager ears, attending to it as a matter of vital concern, directing his whole mind to it, on that occasion the five hindrances are not present in him. On that occasion the seven factors of enlightenment go to fulfillment by development. So when you listen to the Dhamma with eager ears, attending to it as a matter of vital concern, directing the whole mind to it, then the five hindrances are eliminated for that time, for that period when you are concentrating. So that is why you can understand and get right view. So this I translate as focused attention for this reason, because of this sutta. Some people, they translate it as careful attention, proper attention, etc. But from this sutta, he listens to the Dhamma with eager ears, attending to it as a matter of vital concern, directing his whole mind to it. That means totally focused. That's why it's called, I translate it as focused attention. So there is another sutta that says about the conditions for attaining stream entry. This is Samyutta Nikaya 55.55. It talks about the four conditions for stream entry called Sottapatti Yangani. Sottapatti is stream entry. And here it says four conditions for stream entry. One is association with a true man, Sappurisa. The second condition is listening to the true Dhamma, Sat Dhamma. The third condition is focused attention. The fourth is Dhamma no Dhamma Pati Pati. Practice of the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. So you see, of these four conditions, basically the two essential ones is the same as Sutta 40, Majjhima Nikaya 43, that is listening to the true Dhamma and focus attention. So here it is very clear that you must listen to the true Dhamma, and otherwise you cannot get right view. Also it says these four conditions, when developed and cultivated, lead to the realization of the fruit of stream entry. In other words, you practice these four conditions, you get stream entry. If you continue to practice these four conditions, the path turns to fruit. Now in this same sutta, 55.55, where it talks about these four conditions for stream entry, the Buddha also said, if these four conditions are completely and totally absent in a person, then he's not a follower of the Buddha. He is a follower of external sects, Bahiro, external sect follower. So the Buddha is saying, if you don't have these four conditions, you're not a follower of the Buddha, meaning you're not a Buddhist, So, why does the Buddha say this? Because the Buddha calls his disciples, all his followers, whether it's monks or nuns or laymen or laywomen, all are called savakas. Savaka in Chinese we translate as Shen hearers or listeners. So only if you listen to the words of the Buddha, the suttas, you are considered a follower of the Buddha. If not, you're not even a Buddhist. A lot of people, we think we are Buddhists, or we are practicing all kinds of wrong teachings. So the Buddha won't consider you his follower unless you listen to his words in the suttas. So this true Dhamma, Sat Dhamma, is very important. Only when you listen to the true Dhamma, you can get right view. And what is the true Dhamma? In the Vinaya books and also in Anguttara Nikaya 8.51, the Buddha said that his true Dhamma will last 500 years. Later books say 5,000 years. And the Buddha said in the suttas and the Vinaya books that it will last 500 years. Also the Buddha said very clearly that later fake Dhamma will appear. A lot of people find it hard to believe there is such a thing as fake Dhamma. And the Buddha also said in the sutta, the Sangyutta Nikaya 16.13 and 20.7, where the Buddha talked about fake Dhamma, the Buddha said it is here, right here, that foolish men will arise and create this fake Dhamma. In other words, it is the Sangha itself. It's the monks itself who create the false Dhamma. So within the 500 years, we want to know what exactly was the Dhamma within that 500 years before it was polluted. And luckily we have Emperor Asoka, who lived about 250 years after the Buddha's passing away. And Emperor Asoka was so devoted to the Buddha that he asked men to make these stone pillars by the roadside, about maybe 3 feet in diameter by the roadside. And he got the men to carve the words of the Buddha on these stone pillars. Now after so long, they have dug up these stone pillars, and it is confirmed during Emperor Asoka's time there were only 5 Nikayas. The Dhamma consisted of 5 Nikayas. No later books like Mahayana Sutras, no commentaries, no Abhidhamma, no Visuddhimagga, all these did not exist during Emperor Asoka's time. So it's very clear that the true Dhamma is these 5 Nikayas found in the Digha Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya, Sangyutta Nikaya, Anguttara Nikaya and Khuddaka Nikaya. Also in Anguttara Nikaya, Sutta 4.180, the Buddha said, if any monk says that the Buddha taught such and such, the Buddha said, you should not accept it, you should not reject it, but you should compare it with the suttas and the Vinaya. Only it follows the suttas and the Vinaya, and you can take it to be authentic Dhamma, the words of the Buddha. So you see, it is the suttas the Buddha wants us to follow, the discourses of the Buddha. Also in the Digha Nikaya, Sutta 29, the Buddha said that what he has taught is perfect and complete. His teachings are perfect and complete. And the Buddha said, if you think you want to add to his words, you don't see his Dhamma. If you want to subtract from his words also, you don't see his Dhamma. If you don't see his Dhamma, that means you don't have vision of the Dhamma. You're not an Arya. So what the Buddha is trying to say, since the Buddha knows that in the future there will be fake Dhamma, the Buddha is saying that these people who created all these later books are Putujana. They are not Arya. If they are Arya, they would appreciate the Dhamma in the 5 Nikayas. They will appreciate that it is perfect and complete. And this sutta is so important because it also implies that there is no Buddha superior to our Buddha Gautama. Our Buddha Gautama's teaching is perfect and complete, meaning you cannot find another Buddha who can teach more perfect and completely than our Buddha Gautama. At the most, other Buddhas can only equal our Buddha Gautama. So a lot of people don't realize they're thinking of meeting Maitreya Buddha Amitabha Buddha and all these things, when you have the perfect Buddha in front of you. There is this Bhujangas, factors of enlightenment. The 7 factors of enlightenment is the path also to end suffering in the suttas. So it is quite similar to the Ariyan Eightfold path. It also starts with right view and ends with the 4 jhanas. But the 7 Bhujangas are worded a bit differently. Whereas in the Ariyan Eightfold path, the first factor is right view. In the 7 Bhujangas, the first 2 factors tell you how to get right view. The first one is Sati Bhujanga, mindfulness, factor of enlightenment. The second one is Dhamma Vichaya Bhujanga, investigation of Dhamma, factor of enlightenment. And it is said that to practice the first Bhujanga, you have to draw near an Ariya. And then you have to examine him, examine the monk or a nun to see whether it is possible that person could be an Ariya. And how do you do that? You look for greed, hatred and delusion. If he does not have greed, hatred and delusion, then it is possible. Secondly, you look for dana, look for sila, samadhi and panya, whether that monk or the nun keeps the precepts, whether he has a calm mind because of samadhi, and thirdly, whether he has wisdom or not. So if you see that he has this sila, samadhi, panya, then it is possible he could be an Ariya, and you show respect. And when you show respect, he will teach you the Dhamma. And when you listen, when you hear the Dhamma, the Buddha says you have to remember it. After you remember it, you have to reflect on it. That's how you practice Sati Bhujanga. So you see, Sati in this Bhujanga refers to remembering the Dhamma, remembering the true Dhamma, because the word Sati basically means remembering. When we say we practice Sati, we contemplate four things, body, feelings, mind and Dhamma. Actually it means you have to remember to put your attention on these 4 things. So that's why in the suttas the Buddha said when a monk has attained 4 jhanas, his Sati is perfectly pure, parisuddhi. And because his Sati is perfectly pure, he can remember his past lives. Can remember 100 lives, 1,000 lives, hundreds of thousands lives. So a person with a perfect Sati, he has a very good memory. Most of us, we can't even remember what we said and we did yesterday. So this Sati Bhujanga is remembering the Dhamma that you have learned and reflecting on it. And if you remember the Dhamma and you reflect on it, it is possible that you will get right view. But because you might not get right view so fast, the Buddha said the second Bhujanga is to investigate the Dhamma, Dhamma Vichaya. Continue to listen to the Dhamma, to investigate it. Because the Buddha said in the Dhamma that he teaches, there are innumerable nuances, innumerable details, innumerable implications. So we have to really investigate, examine it, think about it. Then you understand more. For example, a lot of us, we know when we listen to the suttas, the first time we catch certain points which we think is important. The second time you listen, you find you catch more points and you're surprised. How come I didn't catch these points earlier? When you listen the third time, you find you still other points you realize you didn't catch before. That's why we have to continue to listen, to examine. So You don't get it the first time, you might get it the second time, or if not the third time, if not the fourth time. That's why we continue to investigate the Dhamma. So these two factors, Sati Bojjhanga and Dhamma Vichaya Bojjhanga, if you practice, it will give you right view, which is the same as the Ariyan Eightfold Path, the first factor. By the way, the last four factors of the seven Bojjhangas is Piti, delight, Pasadi, tranquility, Samadhi, concentration, and Upekkha, equanimity. These four correspond to four jhanas. So you see, in the Ariyan Eightfold Path, that is one factor. In the seven Bojjhangas, it is four factors. Okay, we come back to the Majjhima Nikaya 43. Just now we said we listen to the Dhamma, and if we focus, we have focused attention, we can understand and attain stream entry. Now, after you attain stream entry, you have attained the first factor of the Ariyan Eightfold Path. How do you continue from there? In the Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 43, it is said, after you have attained right view, you need to practice 5 other factors or conditions to attain liberation. 5 factors will bring you to liberation. But in the Ariyan Eightfold Path, there are 8 factors. After you get right view, you have to practice 7 more factors to get liberation. Here in this sutta says 5. So actually these 5 factors in the Majjhima Nikaya 43 correspond to the 7 factors in the Ariyan Eightfold Path. And what are these? It is said after you get right view, you have to practice 5 things, which is Sila, Dhamma Savana, listening to the Dhamma, Dhamma Sakacca, discussion of the Dhamma, Samatha and Vipassana. So the first factor is Sila. Now what does Sila refer to? Just now we mentioned the Majjhima Nikaya 117 Mahachattarisaka Sutta. It says you start with right view, and right view will bring you to right thoughts, and that will bring you to right speech, etc. Right? Now, once you have got right view, it means you have got rid of wrong views. You have got rid of wrong prejudices, and you have got rid of wrong thoughts. So naturally, from right view, you will get right thoughts. Right thoughts means no thoughts of covetousness, no thoughts of ill will or anger, no thoughts of cruelty or harming other beings. Also, after you have right view and right thoughts, you will have right speech. How come you get right speech? Because before you speak, you have to think. So if you have right thoughts, you will naturally have right speech. And then after that, it will bring you to right action. And right action is a result of your right view and your right thoughts. If you have right view and right thoughts, your action also will be right. You don't want to kill, you don't want to steal, you don't want to commit sexual misconduct. And that will bring you to right livelihood. Because if you have right thoughts, right speech, and right action, you will naturally have right livelihood. So you look carefully. After right view, these 4 things is actually Sila. Because Sila means you don't harm others through the 3 karmas, through your thoughts, your speech, and your body. So if you have right thoughts, right speech, and right action, and right livelihood, that is the Sila. Most books will say the Sila component of the Ariyan Eightfold Path is 3 factors: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. But I think it is 4 factors, because when you talk about Sila, you got to include your mind. You don't do harm to your body, you don't do harm to your speech, but you also must not do harm to your mind. So Sila should be right thoughts, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So once you have right view, you see it follows quite naturally that these 4 factors will come naturally. So that means you have 5 factors already of the Ariyan Eightfold Path. Now you're left with 3 factors: the 6, 7 and 8 factor. Yeah. Now we look again at this, just now Majjhima Nikaya. It says after you have right view, you have to practice Sila, Dhammasavana, Dhammasakacha, Samatha and Vipassana. So Sila, we know, is the 4 factors. Dhammasavana is listening to the Dhamma. Dhammasakacha is discussion of the Dhamma. This one actually should come under right mindfulness. Yeah? Because right mindfulness, you contemplate 4 things. Body, feelings, mind and Dhamma. And of these 4 things, the most important is Dhamma. Because in the suttas, it is said, there are 5 occasions when a person becomes an Arahant. When he listens to the Dhamma, when he's teaching the Dhamma, when he's reflecting on the Dhamma, when he's repeating the Dhamma, and the last one is meditation. So you see, of these 5 occasions, 4 is got to do with Dhamma. So if you don't know Dhamma, the Buddha's Dhamma, the true Dhamma, you cannot become enlightened. You cannot even attain any stage of Aryahood. Yeah. So actually I mentioned this Dhammasavana and Dhammasakacha should be part of right mindfulness, which is the 7th factor of the Ariyan Eightfold path. But it is so important that the Buddha brings it out of the 7th factor and tell you that you must listen to the Dhamma, you must discuss Dhamma, otherwise you cannot become an Arahant. So you see, just now to get right view, you have to listen to the Dhamma. Now become Arahant also, you must listen to the Dhamma. That's why no Dhamma cannot find any Arya. So Samatha is practicing Samadhi, which is the 8th factor of the Ariyan Eightfold path. And Dhammasavana and Dhammasakacha comes under right mindfulness. So what is Vipassana? Vipassana is the 2 remaining factors left, not dealt with, which is the 6th factor and the 7th factor, right effort and right mindfulness. Yeah? So Vipassana is not really meditation, because in the Majjhima Nikaya, whenever Ananda was asked what type of meditation is praised by the Buddha, and he said the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, only this is Buddhist meditation. And also he said the type of meditation where you don't get rid of the 5 hindrances is not praised by the Buddha. But the only type of meditation where you can get rid of the 5 hindrances is the 4 jhanas. So when we sit in meditation, we should practice samatha to attain the 4 jhanas. And when we are not sitting in meditation, we must practice vipassana. Vipassana is outside meditation. It's nothing to do with meditation. It's in your daily life. Because in your daily life, you got to be mindful of these 4 objects. If you don't remember to contemplate these 4 objects, then you'll be paying attention to sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touch, which is Mara's bed. The Buddha always says, this is not your ancestral home. Mara is trying to tempt us with beautiful sights, beautiful sounds, smells, tastes and touch. So we have to be very careful not to stray into Mara's playground. That's why you have to be mindful. Then the purpose of being mindful is also to practice right effort, to get rid of unwholesome states and to cultivate wholesome states. That's why these 2, right mindfulness and right effort, we do in daily life. But of course you cannot be thinking of your body, of your feelings and your mind all the time. But as far as feelings are concerned, if your feelings are very strong, you have to take a note. For example, anger arises. Then you have to remember this is an unwholesome state. The Buddha says unwholesome states bring us to the ghost realm, to the animal realm, and to the hell realm. So we want to cultivate wholesome states. So vipassana is practicing this in everyday life to cultivate our character. So what is samatha? Samatha is practicing samadhi. And how to do that, the Buddha said, is to get a hold of our mind. The Buddha gave a simile to make us understand the working of our mind. The Buddha said a hunter caught 6 animals, and he tied a rope around the neck of each animal. And these 6 ropes, he tied them together and he released the 6 animals. What happened? The 6 animals go off in 6 different directions. The first one is the eagle. The eagle wants to fly into the air. The second is the monkey. Monkey wants to climb up the tree. The third is a snake, wants to go into a hole in the ground. The fourth one is a crocodile who wants to pull to the river. The fifth one is the dog who wants to go into town to look for food. And the sixth is a jackal who wants to go up the hill. So these 6 animals are pulling in 6 different directions. The Buddha said, that's a simile for our everyday mind. Our everyday mind is pulled by sights. One has to pay attention to see, pulled by sounds, smells, taste, touch, and thoughts. And so our mind is shifting from object to object all the time. That's why we have a very scattered mind. It's going out through the 6 senses. So the Buddha said, the way to tame the mind, using back the 6 animal simile, the Buddha said the 6 ropes, instead of tying it together and releasing it, the 6 ropes should be tied around a strong pole or a strong post. So however the 6 animals run or fly, they cannot go around and around that post until they are tired, and they very obediently sleep beside the post. So in the same way, the Buddha said to tame our mind, we have to focus it on one object. There's something the mind doesn't like to do. For example, focus on your breath, which is the Buddha's meditation. So keep focusing on your breath. You use two jhana factors, vitaka and vichara. Vitaka is thought directed, vichara is thought sustained. So when we pay attention to our breath, very soon the mind runs away. We pull it back, that is vitaka, thought directed. It runs away, we pull it back using thought directed. And then after it comes back, you sustain it on your breath. That is vichara, thought sustained. Using just these 2 factors. And if you have the good karma, you have the blessings, your mind will calm down. You are not disturbed by remorse, you are not disturbed by bad karma, etc. Then you can follow your breath. When you are able to follow your breath longer and longer, slowly the mind becomes one-pointed. That is ekagata. When it becomes one-pointed, 2 other factors arise together with it, piti and sukha, delight and bliss. You feel bliss arising and you are delighted. But the problem is when we are delighted, we become so excited, we fall off like falling off the chair, fall out of the samadhi. Then you want to get it back again, then you put more effort. So that is how we tame our mind. Just bring it back to one object all the time, training it to focus. Training the mind is focus is very important. As you listen just now, to get right view, you must be able to focus your mind when you listen to the Dhamma. If you are not able to focus your mind when you listen to the Dhamma, you cannot get right view. There are some people with very scattered minds, when they listen to the Dhamma, it goes in one ear, goes out the other ear. Cannot retain, So that is samatha. When we practice samatha, we are developing our mind. The word bhavana means development. And very often, some monks say bhavana means meditation. But bhavana, there are 2 aspects of bhavana. One is development of mind, the other one is development of character. Development of mind is samatha, practicing samatha or samadhi, where you train your mind to focus until your hindrances come down to a low level. These 5 things, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry and doubt, by themselves they are not called the 5 hindrances. When they are very strong, they obsess the mind, enslave the mind, then they are called the 5 hindrances. But when we cultivate samadhi, it comes down to a low level, and it does not obstruct the mind. They are still there, but they are no more called hindrances. That's why when a person attains samadhi, the Buddha said the hindrances are eliminated, long term. So this is development of the mind, because once a person attains even the first jhana, his consciousness transcends the sensual realm and goes into the form realm, goes into Brahma, Mahabrahma's realm. That's why the Buddha said, now when a monk attains the first jhana, he has blinded Mara. Mara cannot see him. Mara cannot touch him because his consciousness has gone to the form realm. Mara is only in the sensual realm. Mara can only trick us with all the sensual bait. But in the form realm, he cannot do anything. That's why the Buddha calls the jhanas uttari manusa dhamma, superhuman states. Now the vipassana, as I mentioned, consists of right effort and right mindfulness. And right effort is the effort to abandon arisen unwholesome states and to prevent the arising of unarisen unwholesome states, and also the maintenance of wholesome states and to cause the arising of unarisen wholesome states. Because I mentioned unwholesome states bring us to woeful planes of rebirth, and wholesome states bring us up to happy destinations of rebirth. Unwholesome states are states of greed, hatred, pride, deceit, cunning, shameless, selfish, ungratefulness, lazy. Wholesome states are kind, generous, compassionate, humble, honest and straightforward, diligent, etc. So in everyday life, we have to be mindful, the Buddha said, also of our 3 karmas, how we act to our mind, to our body and to our speech. So the Buddha said, before we act to these 3 karmas, before we act, we have to contemplate whether it's going to harm somebody or benefit somebody. If it's going to harm, we should not do. If it's going to benefit, we should do again and again. While we are doing also, we should contemplate. And after we have done also, we should contemplate. That's how we perfect our 3 karmas. And these karmas, our actions determine our character. So if we practice mindfulness and right effort, we develop our character to be higher and higher. The Buddha said, if we want to be reborn in heaven, we have to change our character so that we have the character of a Deva or a Devi. If we don't know Dhamma, then we become selfish people. A lot of people, when they are dying, they are frightened because they see the woeful, this ghost realm, beings from the ghost realm coming to welcome them. So some people, when they are dying, slowly the face will change, because I'm one of the few monks who talk about the soul. We have a soul inside us, which in the Hinduism is called the astral body. A lot of monks say we have no soul because they have a wrong understanding of soul. The Buddhist soul is different from the Christian soul. The Christian soul is permanent, eternal. The Buddhist soul is impermanent. And the soul in the Oxford Dictionary is defined as the spiritual part of man, often assumed to be permanent. It's only assumed to be permanent. It's not necessarily permanent. So you find like 1 or 2 years ago, one of our young devotees, the mother had cancer. And he brought the mother to our monastery to do dana, and I encouraged the mother to listen to the Dhamma, to come and keep the 8 precepts. So he brought the mother, and the mother comes for 2-3 days and very restless and go back. Another time when she's feeling more dukkha, she comes again. Stays 3 days and goes back again, too restless. Then later when she was dying, the son called me up. The son was shocked because the mother's face was turning into the ghost face. So I told him, I warn you. Most people will go for rebirth in the ghost realm because we don't take enough trouble to do dana, sila and bhavana. So we use our good karma. As a human being, we are in the happy destination of rebirth. We are like some of the lower devas, You have a good life. So you're using up your blessings every day. If you don't know how to replenish your blessings enough, by the time you die, your blessings are a bit less than the human realm. You'll go into the ghost realm, and most people will go into the ghost realm. So it's not surprising, her face turned into a ghost. Another devotee told me, the auntie, very nasty character, full of anger and hatred. 2 days before she died, the kula teeth came out so long. The whole family got shocked. Then 2 days later, when she died, the teeth disappeared. What does it mean? It means the soul, we call linghun, has left the body. When it leaves the body, so the teeth also disappeared. Reborn as a ghost with the long teeth. So when you listen to all this, we have to be afraid. If you're afraid, you take the trouble to practice. If you're not afraid, you won't take the, how can I say, bong ti ling ling. One thing, if you have listened to my sutta talks, I've quoted a few examples where it is not difficult to attain right view. In the suttas, many individuals, they listen to the Dhamma the first time, one time only they attain right view. And then in the suttas, there's a sutta about Sarakani, Sakin. He passed away and people asked the Buddha, where was Sarakani reborn? And the Buddha said, Sarakani has gone for a good rebirth. He was a Sotapanna. And then when the news spread, some people were annoyed. They say, how can Sarakani was a drinker? How can he be a Sotapanna? If Sarakani can be a Sotapanna, we are all Sotapanna because we don't drink. So when the news came back to the Buddha said, why not? Sarakani has taken refuge in the Buddha Dhamma and Sangha for a long time. Meaning he has listened to the Dhamma for a long time. Then the Buddha said, look at the trees. If I taught the Dhamma to the trees and they can understand, even trees also can become Sotapanna. Why can't Sarakani? The Buddha is saying that actually it's the understanding of the Dhamma that makes you a Sotapanna, nothing else. So another time, the Buddha brought 1,000 Arahants to Rajagaha, and King Bibisara threw a big dana and asked the people of Rajagaha to come out. And 120,000 people came out. After the meal, the Buddha spoke the 4 Ariyan truths, and all 120,000 people attained stream entry. They are not doctors or lawyers or engineers or what, no, ordinary kong ama ai. So a lot of these things. The other thing, there are some monks say that to become a Sotapanna you need jhana. There is one sutta that says very clearly you don't need jhana. This sutta is 55.40, and it says there are 2 types of Sotapanna. One is the diligent Sotapanna, one is the negligent. The diligent Sotapanna, after he has become a Sotapanna, he makes the effort to strive to attain jhana. The negligent one, after he attains Sotapanna, happy, no need to strive. So he doesn't make the effort to attain jhana. So you find these two types of Sotapanna. That means all Sotapanna, they don't need jhana. Some they take the trouble to cultivate, some don't take the trouble to cultivate. So it's very clear, you don't need jhana. But one thing, there's one sutta, Anguttara Nikaya 3.86, where the Buddha compared this Aryans with the practice of Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Sila, Samadhi and Panya also is basically the holy path, the Ariyan Eightfold path. And it is said that the Sotapanna and the Sakadagamin, the first and the second fruition Arya, they have perfect Sila. The Anagamin has perfect Sila and perfect Samadhi. And the Arahant has perfect Sila, Samadhi and Panya. Perfect Samadhi refers to the four jhanas. So the Sotapanna and the Sakadagamin, they don't need the four jhanas. Whereas the third and the fourth fruit, they need four jhanas. Now, just now I mentioned that the Sotapanna does not need any jhana. But the Sakadagamin needs either the first or the second or the third jhana. Now to attain jhana is not so easy, in the suttas, it is said, before a person enters the first jhana, he has to be aloof from sensual desires, aloof from unwholesome states. Then only he can he can enter the first jhana. So you have to get rid of sensual desires and unwholesome states. That means you need to practice for some time. So that's why monks and nuns are celibate. If you are a householder, you have a husband or a wife, Sotapanna can get. Sakadagami onwards cannot, because you have to be celibate, you have to abstain from sex. I think I've talked enough. I'd like to invite questions.